Thank you, Kelly. She's invaluable. All right, I'm going to have Allison come on up. All right, Parks and Recreation Month, one of the best months. So this is the only proclamation I have tonight, but it's a good one, so I'm excited to give this. Whereas Parks and Recreation makes lives and communities better now and in the future, and whereas 98% of California households indicated they visited a local park at least once in the past year, most often visiting a park with family and friends, and whereas parks provide access to the serenity and the inspiration of nature and safe indoor and outdoor spaces to play and exercise, and whereas parks preserve and protect the historic, natural, and cultural resources in our community, and whereas recreation fosters human development, providing positive alternatives for children and youth during non-school hours to reduce crime and mischief, thereby helping children and youth develop and grow into healthy and productive adults, and whereas Parks and Recreation offer places, spaces, and programs that facilitate social connections, human development, therapy, the arts, and lifelong learning. And whereas Parks and Recreation strengthens community image, sense of place and cultural unity. And whereas Parks and Recreation provides opportunities for directed and self-directed activities which encourage healthy movement. And whereas the City of Turlock urges all its residents to recognize that Parks and Recreation enriches the lives of its residents and visitors, as well as adding value to the community's homes and neighborhoods. Now, therefore, I, Gary Soyseth, by virtue of the authority vested in me as Mayor of the City of Turlock, do hereby proclaim the month of July 2015 as Parks and Recreation Month, and acknowledge that parks make life better, and in doing so, urge all citizens to use and enjoy our parks and recreational opportunities. Congratulations, Allison. Absolutely. For sure. You want to say anything?
Mayor and Council, thank you very much for taking the time tonight to recognize the month that we're celebrating currently. I'd just like to accept this proclamation on behalf of my very dedicated and hardworking staff in the Parks, Recreation, and Facilities Department. Without them, none of what we do would be possible. And I really want to acknowledge their work, particularly this summer season. We've had some unprecedented challenges with this drought, and they take a tremendous amount of pride in the work that they do, and the struggles that we've had as a result of the drought have really caused an impact, I think, on you know, the way that we feel about what we do for the community. And so we really appreciate the ongoing support, trust that we are doing everything that we can to maintain our facilities to the best of our ability. We continue to provide quality programming for the community, and we are just proud to serve the Turlock residents and beyond. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you again, Allison. All right, moving on to 2B, appointment to the Community Grant Ad Hoc Subcommittee. It is recommended that we appoint Councilmember Nascimento and Councilmember Jacob to the committee. What is the will of the council?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Bublock, seconded by Councilmember DeHart. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember DeHart.
Yes.
Councilmember Nascimento.
Yes.
Councilmember Bublock.
Yes.
Councilmember Jacob.
Yes.
Mayor Soyseth.
Yes, motion carries 5-0. There will be no special briefings tonight. We'll move on to staff updates, capital projects, and building activity by Director Pitcock.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and the members of the council. Today, for your permit tracking for the building activity for the month of June, we were back up to 110 permits, 73 over the counter, 20 over at minor contracts, 17 through traditional, and 85% were done in 5 days or less. The one number I really wanted to point out to today, over 6 months, I wanted to see if this was going to be kind of an anomaly or something that's more of a something that's going to be a change of how we do business. But one of the things I wanted to point out is we've now are working on trying to get more and more out the door within the 5-day format, and we're at 84% for the first 6 months, and we're continuing to try to make improvements there. So you can see from the previous 12 months we were at 74%, so we continue to try to increase our ability to get things out the door as quickly as possible. For capital projects update for the foreseeable future, the Council Chambers Improvement Project, construction is expected to begin on July 27th. First order work will be the ADA improvements to the bathrooms behind us here in the hallway. So we hope to see them here first thing on the 27th. If I hear of some changes, delays, or modification of that schedule, I'll let you know. Drew Avenue Storm Drain and Sewer Project, we're working on the punch list. The work is essentially complete. The Crow Roll pedestrian improvements is complete, so the pedestrian push buttons and signs on both directions are now operating correctly. We'll be before the council in August with a notice of completion. The Hawkeye Avenue and the Gear Road overlay projects, both of those projects, the asphalt pavement has been completed. We're in the process of finishing up the inductive loops, so many of the traffic signals you probably noticed are not very efficient at this point in time. My understanding as of today, the traffic signals on Gear Road at Christopherson, Springer, and Taylor Road are back working under the loops, under the sensors. And we just converted the Hawkeye intersection at Gear Road to sensors. So hopefully tomorrow we'll have the Olive signal up on sensors as well as the Dell signal on sensors. And following the installation of all the loops and getting those up to speed, we'll be doing the traffic striping, and that's the last order of work. East Main Street near Canal Drive, we're going to be replacing water line there. The working days start tomorrow, but they have not scheduled their start date with us, so we'll start counting the working days because they're given a certain allotment of days. If they don't meet those, we do charge them penalties. So we'll, as soon as we get an update on the start date, we'll make sure we notify the council. The Headstream Storm Drain Project, the work, they've completed most of the work. They're working on a few punch list items. We think we'll be back before the council in August with a notice of completion. And the skate park at Donnelly Park, where it's out to bid and bids are scheduled to be received on July 22nd. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions? Yes, Councilmember DeHart.
Thanks, Mike. Just a quick question and clarification. If you said it, I missed it. Estimated completion time on the traffic striping, Gear, and Hawkeye?
I couldn't tell you exactly when they're going to be complete. I do know that they need to get the sensors cut and everything operational before they actually start the striping. I know they have started on Hawkeye. They've got some of the limit lines and the arrows. So I would hope in the next 2 to 3 weeks we'll be buttoning all that up.
Okay, so the target end of August? Is that?
I would hope the target would be somewhere towards the 1st of August, but if it may go into the middle or end of August.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Director Pitcock? No, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Next up, a water conservation update from Director Cook.
Good evening, Mayor Soliseth, members of the council. Unfortunately, I have a mixed message for you tonight. Unfortunately, overall water production was down only 20% in June 2015 compared to 2013, which is not what we were hoping for. Obviously, our goal is 32%. However, when we disaggregated the data, there's some good news mixed in there. Our overall residential use was down 31% year over year. In fact, all customer classes cut back significantly. However, our industrial users, their production was actually up 8%. Instead of a reduction of 32, they're actually up 8, which is a significant swing when they make up 20 to 25% of our overall water use. So, again, our city and institutional users have led the way. Ms. Van Gilda's department is doing a great job. The school district, Medical Alert, Emmanuel Medical Center are doing a great job. But we still didn't meet the 32% reduction. There's a couple of reasons for that. One is, again, the industrial users were up compared to year over year. And then we're looking back at our data. We're comparing to June of 2013. That was a very atypical production month for us. It was very low use back in June of 2013. If I remember correctly, it was rather cool. And so people were using less water. So it's a challenge when you're comparing year to year because no 2 years are the same. Obviously, I don't want to blame the industries for the struggles we're having. So it was a good thing when they're actually increasing production and processing more food and boosting the economy. And we have met with them and worked with them. They've done a lot of efficiency projects over the last couple of years. So I know they're doing their part as best they can. But those savings are often dwarfed by increased production. And part of it, too, is a challenge of how the state calculates these things. They don't take into account cities like Turlock that have a large industrial base where that industrial demand is very flat. And the demand for irrigation water kind of goes up and down. That's something you can target. So there's a lot of things we are doing. Obviously, billing inserts continue. Our IT department has done a fantastic job with a new application online where you can look at your water use on a daily or even hourly basis and see how you compare with similar residences. So you look at people with similar lot sizes, similar size house, and you can compare a family of 3, how am I doing compared to that family of 4, family of 1. So it's a very, very impressive computer application that our IT department, Carla Grossman in particular, did a great job with. We continue our signage program. There's still some signs here, the signs in my office. If anybody wants to sign for their yard, please let us know. Enforcement continues aggressively. If you have a neighbor with a green yard, it probably shouldn't be green right now, so don't forget to turn them in. We'll be happy to look at them. We mailed out 160 letters to the top 1% of water users in Turlock, just kind of a notice, hey, you're using a lot of water, is there anything you can do to cut back? We notified 94 people they may have potential leaks in their system. They're using water 24/7. In June, we sent out 392 warning notices, 40 informational notices. In July, 261 warnings and 7 fines. So for this year, we've sent out 1,199 warning notices, and ultimately 9 of which ended up with a penalty. So most people change their behavior after a warning. And we have changed the hours of operation of our enforcement staff. We did see usage jump around depending on when we were working, so we changed the hours, and I just checked the computer, and people have already responded to the new enforcement hours. So that's been very effective. So overall mixed bag, but I know July is going to look better, and I know we're going to get through this with help from our residents and businesses. So any questions for me?
Any questions or comments from Director Cook? I just have one quick point of clarification. Can you, we are aware as the council, but can you once again explain the medians and why the medians look the way they do and what we're doing to try and save the trees versus the grass versus native plants and different things? Can you explain that a little bit?
Right, so the governor's executive order on the drought actually said that medians, street medians irrigated with potable water with ornamental grass can no longer be watered. So we can no longer water the grass in those medians if we use drinking water to water those medians. We have some medians where we use non-potable water. The problem with that is the trees are also on the same system as the grass sprinklers, so when Ms. Van Gilda's crews turn those off, the trees start to stress. They were initially watering those with a water truck. It was very time inefficient. They worked very, very hard and put in some type of drip or soaker system in there around the trees so they could water the trees automatically without watering the turf, the ornamental turf in the median. So we're basically responding directly to the governor's request through his executive order.
Okay.
But it doesn't look great, and it's heartbreaking for the hardworking men and women in the Parks Department to see that. But we're working through it.
Absolutely, and my hat's off still to your crew, because even though, again, things are dry, things are not even brown, they're more yellow, they keep the parks clean and still golden, exactly. They keep them accessible. And just one more point of clarification. Can you talk specifically, again, you briefed the council, but one more time, about what went on at, I believe it's Sing Parkway and the whole area, Dale Pinckney Park, and that system? Just briefly explain that.
So a number of years ago, we were using too much drinking water to water parks. So we put in as a new development came on, we looked at non-potable water, so shallow wells to water the parks. Obviously not want to use our precious drinking water for that. Coincidentally, both of those wells that watered that Sing Parkway and a lot of the green space in that northeast Turlock went bad on the same day, or effectively the same day. One of them, the casing collapses, the column in the ground where the water gets pushed through, and one of them, the pump motor died, basically. So we had, for about 2 or 3 weeks, had no water out there to water the landscaping. Now, we did have the choice to tie that system into the drinking water system, but one that would have been against the governor's executive order. And so we worked with our contract well company to repair the motors, repair the wells, repair the pumps, and they have come back online. Because they're non-potable, it's not subject to the same watering restrictions, so I've told the Parks Department they can water as much as they need to get that landscaping kind of back in a somewhat healthy condition again. Obviously, we'll cut back, but some of that was dead or dying, so it needs an extra shot of water. So they're trying to bring that back in that area.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. Thank you so much. All right. We'll move on to website design update. All right. Chief is going to give this update.
Thank you, Mayor. We gave Captain Amafar the day off today, so I'm going to stand in for him. And we have Carlo in the back in case you have a really hard question about technology that I have no idea how to answer it. So I will share with you, we are making progress with the website. I know there's a lot of interest with the council as far as getting our website updated and kind of what people expect now from the community, and we're excited as well. I will share with you that we met last week. Thank you, Councilmember Jacob, for being there. Your insight was really helpful. And thank you to Carlo, who's put a whole lot of work into the research and development as far as the backbone to our website system. And we had projected, we'd hoped that we'd have the technology side taken care of by June, but we wanted to get it right, and we're still waiting to figure out a few things from a couple of departments within the city. And we're working diligently on that right now, and it's close. It's close to being done with the technology side. And in that meeting, we spoke heavily as far as the end result, as far as where we'd like to see it go. And I think there's two parts. One is the technology, which we're getting squared away as far as how to make everything work. The second part for me is going to be marketing and branding and kind of what you guys want from the I shouldn't call council you guys, huh? But anyways, we're working to figure out what it is we'd like to see as far as the finished product. Councilman Jacob has some great ideas as far as user friendliness for the community as well as internal users. So I think what we'll see is we'll get the technology squared away, then we'll come for direction, to seek direction from council as far as what you'd like us to do as far as end result. And I would encourage maybe having more meetings. Hopefully, Councilmember Jacob, you could attend as well and help us get down the right path. We're close. We're excited about it. I know what you're going to find is a really good product at the end. And if you have any questions as far as the whole technology part of it, we brought Carlos here today too, so I'm open for questions if you have any.
Any questions or comments for the dude from police department? Sorry. Two can play at this game.
Yeah, that's all right. I've been called worse.
Any questions or comments for the chief? Councilman Jacob, how are things going with the committee?
So in the last meeting, I was very impressed by the work that's been done by staff thus far. There's some really great legwork that's been put into getting us where we are right now. So I'm very optimistic, and I'm there to help from a directional standpoint in terms of branding and marketing, and I know that that's a shared priority for all of us to kind of make sure that we're getting the community involved, and so I'm kind of looking at it from that aspect as well, as how can we use technology to get more civic engagement, more people to come out to our meetings. I'd love to see all the people that are here, but if we can increase those numbers or get people to log in online and communicate with us and interact with us, I think that'd be a great tool to use. So I'm very proud of the work that they're doing so far, and I'll continue to be involved as much as I can.
Absolutely. And I think that I'm glad the subcommittee, I think it helps it be a little bit more nimble, that you guys can work together, but perhaps even a periodic workshop so that we can kind of see the progress, so the five of us can also weigh in. I don't want too many cooks in the kitchen, but at the same time, maybe we can give some feedback and go from there.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Any other questions or comments? All right. Thank you so much, Chief.
And I'd like to clean up my act. Thank you, Honorable Mayor and Honorable
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you so much. Moving on to public participation. This is a time set aside for members of the public to directly address the City Council on any item of interest to the public that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council, and to address the Council on any item on tonight's agenda, including consent calendar items. You'll be allowed 5 minutes for your comments. If you wish to speak regarding an item on the agenda, you may be asked to defer your remarks until the Council addresses the matter. I have a few cards regarding the War Memorial Cannon, so I put that at that section. No action or discussion may be undertaken on any item not appearing on the posted agenda, except that council may refer the matter to staff or request it to be placed on a future agenda. Our friend from the library, Diane Bartlett, would you like to start us off? Always good seeing you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and welcome, or good evening to you and to City Council members and to members in the audience. Yes, every month I like to come in and talk about what's happening at the library, and this evening's going to be no different. We have our story times for preschoolers on Wednesdays and Thursdays. They run through July, and then in August we're going to take a little break and do some other kinds of programming, but the programs, the story time programs are going to be back in September at their regular times. For adults, tomorrow evening at 7 o'clock, we'll be having a glass etching class. It's turning out to be one of those popular classes. We have Almost 20 people signed up, which is good for us, but we still have a little bit of room if you're interested. That's 7 o'clock tomorrow night. At 4 o'clock tomorrow, kids are going to be making marshmallow towers with marshmallows and spaghetti, dried spaghetti. And then on the 21st, a Tuesday, they'll be making bird feeders for our, and they'll be talking a little bit about environmental heroes such as John Muir. And on the 22nd at 4 o'clock, they'll be creating things with duct tape. And, of course, I can't forget Lego Day on the 28th at 4 o'clock. And then on Wednesday the 29th, July, activities will end with pom-pom shooters. I have lots of fun. Those catapult kinds of things just have, and lots of fun at the library. And then on August 4th, that's the last day for our summer reading challenge. So if you haven't read your book and written your review and turned that in, I encourage you to do that before August 4th. Who knows, you might be the grand prize winner. And then finally, I would just like to once again give a big thank you to the fire department and the police department for coming out and sharing what you do with the community. They were two of our biggest, most popular classes or most popular programs. And when the police chief came out, it was such a warm day. It just shows that you're so dedicated to the community by bringing water for everybody who attended because you're so concerned about that. So I really, really appreciate that. Thank you so much. And thank you for the opportunity to speak, and we'll see you at the library.
Thank you so much, Diane. All right, moving on to, I have Lisa Giletti. All right, perfect.
Thank you, Mayor Sosa and the council. I have some concerns about the homeless community, and they are near and dear to my heart. I have been homeless in the past, and now I am no longer, but I keep in touch, and I'm seeing it started a month ago or so. People are getting tickets for illegal camping and illegal storage in the park, and first it was shopping carts. I understand that. They shouldn't use them. That's fine. But then they were told they couldn't remove their personal belongings off of their bike trailer and put it on the ground at the park because it would be illegal storage. However, though, families can come with their ice chests and anything else, and they're getting tickets for illegal storage. Now bike trailers are no longer allowed, and they're being told that they can only have a blanket, and that's it. And my concern is, the Ham Center. I thought that the city was working with the Ham Center, and it's temporary now. And I think that a lot of those people that are occupying the parks would be at the Ham Center as it was before. It was so comfortable. They stayed there, sometimes all day. And now with the Ham Center being in a temporary location, we have more of our homeless community in the parks. And yes, it's possibly, we need somewhere for them to go, and I don't want to see them persecuted in any manner. And I spoke with Officer Alberti on the 7th, and he told me, quote unquote, that they are cracking down and that they have zero tolerance for homeless. And he suggested that everybody needs to move out of the area. And I'm thinking, okay, what, out of the city limits, and then the sheriff's department, did they sign on board for this cracking down thing? If you put them in the county, and so my concern is that this cracking down is I feel borderline harassment. I don't feel that being homeless should be illegal. It's a situation that they are in. And many will be rehabilitated, and many will not. That's a sad fact about homelessness. But many can be rehabilitated and get back into, the mainstream. And I just don't want to see that sort of persecution.
Thank you. Mr. Robert Allen.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. My name is Robert Allen. I'm the founder of the Fired Up group, finding independent resources, economically driven, uniting people. I am a homeless advocate or representative of the people of Turlock who listen to the homeless people and try and come to some type of understanding of how we can help each other. As Ms. Giletti mentioned, that the homeless people are now being persecuted. I feel that. I see that. This is a section of our community that we should be helping, putting our hand out. I know that the mental health is starting to help them, but as soon as they had one mention that they were here, immediately the police department, the fire department, the railroad police came down upon the section of people at Denier Park and started harassing them about being there. This was at 6 o'clock in the morning, so there is definitely an underlying agenda that I see within the city, not actually trying to find a solution on how to help us, but trying to persecute us, have us go away because we are an eyesore. We are just human beings. That's all we want to do is survive. And when we have to hide ourselves because we are rejected by our own community, what are we to do as people? Christians. We call ourselves Christians. We pray. We give a salute to our flag under God. In God we trust, but we don't trust in God. We don't trust in how we can help our fellow man. All I am is just a voice, a representative. How can I help them if I can't even trust our own city government to help us? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Any other individuals from the public like to address the council? All right, and for Ms. Giletti and Mr. Allen, if you ever have any clarification on Turlock municipal codes or anything, please come organize a meeting with some of the staff here. We'd be happy to work with you. All right, moving on to 4A, a motion waiving reading of all ordinances on the agenda except by title.
So moved. Second.
So we have a motion by Councilmember DeHart, seconded by Councilmember Bublock. Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, motion carries 5-0. Declaration of conflicts of interest and disqualifications. Looking to my left, looking to my right. Seeing none, moving on to disclosure of ex parte communications. Seeing none? Seeing none? Yes. Oh, excuse me. Public hearing item 7A is a quasi-judicial proceeding, but I believe it's being pulled. I had a note saying it was being pulled, that's why. All right. So we do not have to do that. Moving on to consent calendar. What is the pleasure of the council?
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Bublock, seconded by Councilmember Nascimento to accept the consent calendar as is. Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, motion carries 5-0. Moving on to final readings. What is the pleasure of the council on 6A? Correct. Okay, please, clerk, please call the roll.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, motion carries 5-0. And moving on to B, clerk, please call the roll.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, motion carries 5-0. Moving on to public hearings. Moving on to 7A, a request for approval, pulled. I have a note again. You know when you're running and your feet or legs are ahead of your body a little bit and you look like Speedy Gonzalez? That's kind of how I feel right now. So moving on to 7B, request to confirm diagrams, assessments, and reports and levying assessments for fiscal year 2015 to 16 for all lighting, landscaping, and street maintenance benefit areas within the city of Turlock. Director Pitcock.
Good evening once again, Honorable Mayor, members of the council. The item before you is the confirmation of diagrams, assessments, and reports for assessment districts for fiscal year 15-16. Pursuant to the Landscape and Lighting Act of 1972 and the Benefit Assessment Act of 1982, the City Council must confirm annual assessment report for all lighting, landscaping, and street maintenance benefit areas for 15-16. The overall anticipated revenue for the 194 districts is $2.513 million. These funds are used to offset the costs associated with maintenance of the landscaping, as well as operations and maintenance costs associated with street lighting, street sweeping, and street slurry seals. If you have to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions or comments for Director Pitcock? All right, seeing none. Any questions or comments from the public for Director Pitcock? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to council. What is the pleasure of the council?
Introduce the resolution.
Do I have a second? I have a second. So we have a motion by Councilmember Bublock, seconded by Councilmember DeHart. Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Thank you, Director Pitcock. All right, moving on to scheduled matters. 8A, request to rescind city contract number 14082 with Stott Outdoor Advertising of Chico, California, to sell and maintain advertising on the exteriors of Turlock's urban services buses and remit a portion of the sales revenue to the city in form of transit fares, and approve city contract number 15-077 with Stott Outdoor Advertising of Chico, California for said service. Director Pitcock.
Thank you again.
I was wondering why you were hovering. I didn't see the next part. Yeah.
Trying to be efficient with my time and your time. Just want to give a little bit of history. I know you've all seen this before, but I'll give a little bit of history for the public. Since 1998, the city has actually contracted with Allen Seaton Consulting for the selling of advertisement on our buses. On the 24th of October of last year, we put out a request for proposal for advertisement to see if there's any other vendors that could be equally or better suited for our needs. We did receive 2 proposals, and the proposal that was best suited for our needs was Stott Outdoor Advertising of Chico, and they were deemed as most qualified. On February 25th of this year, we did come before the council, and we did ask that you approve an agreement for 3 years with Stott. However, the agreement was never executed, as we ran into some issues with some information from the time that you approved the agreement to the time that Stott was getting ready to sign the agreement. What we found was that Al Seaton's Consulting had several agreements out there that had varying lengths and terms, and what it was causing was a problem with Stott to actually be able to meet the revenue projections that which they would put in their original agreement, original proposal. So we stepped back, we worked with Stott to come up with some different terms that continue to meet the objective of the request for proposal, but yet allowed opportunity for some of those existing contracts to end. Many of them, all but one of them, is going to end as of August of this year, leaving only one actual contract out there that was created by Al Seaton during his tenure. So we're asking you to approve the 3-year agreement. We did make some modifications. I'm going to go through a little bit of the modifications. Again, we adjusted the start and the end time of the contract, but we kept the term the same length. We adjusted the dates when the various pricing tiers kick in. We also adjusted the expected compensation under each tier based on the actual number of buses. Before we kind of give them a list of the number of buses we anticipated, they took them as gospel. And I said, no, we're going to be buying some buses. There could be some leeway one way or the other, so we actually are going to pay them based on the actual number of buses that they're actually putting advertisement on. I did want to talk a little bit about another effort that we're doing in conjunction with this. We're actually having discussions with Stott regarding an opportunity to possibly do some advertising on bus benches and or the enclosures. So we're in negotiations to see if we can come to an agreement that meets both our needs and Stott's needs. If we can come to some sort of agreement, we'll be back before council and possibly amend this agreement at that time, possibly bring in additional revenues to the transit operation. So, but tonight I'm just asking you to approve the 3-year agreement with Stott Advertising, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions or comments for Director Pitcock? Yes, Councilman Nelsonmetto.
Director Pitcock, I was going through the contract and it wasn't immediately clear to me, but is there any provision that would keep Stott from entering into contracts that go beyond their agreement so we don't run into this situation again?
I don't believe there's anything that requires them to not go beyond their term. So I think that at the end of the day, we may have the same situation if Stott's replaced with a different company down the road. That could be something that we have some discussions with them and bring back an amendment to try to insert that at a later date. So we could ask them to terminate their advertisement agreements at the termination date of this, but it's not currently in the agreement.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, I'm going to open it for public participation. Any questions or comments for Director Pitcock? Seeing none, I will close public participation and bring it back to the council for consideration.
Question for Madam Attorney: does it present any challenge for us if we don't have language in the contract that would keep them from agreeing to contracts with other advertisers beyond the end date of this contract?
I think it potentially creates the same issue that we had with our prior provider as we move forward. So if there is no language added to the contract, then we as staff need to be cognizant as we go out for the next RFP to make sure that it's clearly understood that there are potentially other contracts that would extend, that are still in effect, and that would affect the revenue stream, and make that abundantly clear to any people that are submitting proposals in any future requests for proposals.
Yeah, we tried to do that this time as well, but we had some issues getting copies of the contracts from the last consultant. So I believe that we're going to be a lot more transparent. There will be more transparency with STOT. Will be more information provided to us on a more regular basis. The contract and agreement does provide for that.
Yeah, I don't want to hamstring their ability to seek out advertisers. So I guess if they're giving us that information and we know ahead of time, we put it out for bid next time. As long as we have that information, it shouldn't really be an issue, right?
Yeah, our last agreement, which was in 1998, was a single-page document that had very little requirements in it. The new agreement has many different requirements as far as reporting, noticing, and gives us a lot more of an advantage to understand where we are at any given point.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Both. Do I have a second? We have a motions by Councilmember Bublak, seconded by Councilmember DeHart. Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, motions carry 5-0. Thank you so much, and thank you, Councilmember Bublak, on this issue. I know you followed it hard. Moving on to 8B, request to authorize the relocation of the War Memorial Cannon to Central Park. Director Van Gilder.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The item before you, as you stated, is a request a request and recommendation from your Parks, Recreation, and Parks, Arts, and Recreation Commission to consider relocating our War Memorial Cannon to the Central Park area. The diagram that you have before you gives you sort of an overview of where the cannon could be placed at Central Park, being at the southern end of Central Park along Golden State and Crane Avenue. Up to this point, we have had a couple of public meetings to discuss this item. The first being back in May. We introduced the discussion recognizing that there was going to be a property transfer of the War Memorial and we needed to essentially find a new home for our cannon. At our Parks, Arts, and Recreation Commission meeting, we had a discussion about several different locations that might be of consideration. And through that discussion, we had representatives from our local military groups in attendance and had, I think, a pretty fruitful discussion about what our options were. Ultimately, through that discussion, our commission narrowed down the Central Park location, and at our June meeting made that formal recommendation to the council. And we had a public hearing, invited property owners within 1,000 feet of Central Park to come and speak on the matter. We did not have any comments on that at that hearing, and so essentially we're here before you tonight to ask for your consideration of that movement. I've set up a timeline for you in that council item to let you know sort of what the plan is should you approve that transfer. And part of that will be a meeting with our local military groups. I've contacted the VFW, the American Legion, as well as the Disabled Veterans Group, and they're all going to be invited to come to the table to talk about the design and things of that nature. And so if there's any other interested parties in the community, I would encourage them to contact us to get involved. And with that, I'd like to just show you the second rendering so everybody can get an idea of what it could possibly look like.
Great. Do we have any questions or comments for Director Van Gilder? Sure. Yeah, Councilmember Butblock.
Was the vote unanimous?
Yes, it was. So this is a rendering that was generously designed by Landmeyer Designs and Kesey Designs. They put this together on a volunteer basis to be able to give those of us who are visually challenged an idea of what it could possibly look like. I'm one of those people. I think that they did an amazing job, and I think it really stands to be a significant highlight in our community. Some of the details aren't necessarily in our current budget, but we, at the very basic level, intend to have a raised concrete platform with the fencing and lighting, and as well as the 5-foot sidewalk that goes all the way around the area. So some of the brickwork that you see there may not get done in the first phase, but the idea is that we'll work with our local military groups to come up with the design standards, and then if there are things that we can essentially phase in at a later date, whether it be through fundraising. I mean, there's some great ideas out there about, you know, veterans being able to purchase bricks and things of that nature, where we might be able to honor people on a more personal basis, but all of those things are still, you know, kind of conceptual at this point. And so with that, the item before you tonight is basically to ask you for your approval to relocate the War Memorial Cannon to Central Park. And if you so choose to do that, we will then begin that process of working with the community to finalize the design details. And then ultimately, our goal is to be able to rededicate the cannon on Veterans Day through a community event that the entire community can celebrate. So,
absolutely, great.
Any questions?
Any questions or comments for Director Van Gilder? Yes, Councilmember DeHart.
Have we made any provision or had any discussion about a flag also at this location?
We have not, but we do have a flag on the opposite side of the park near John Mitchell. So there is a flag, but I think that there's an opportunity to redesign and incorporate some of those elements. So again, through that design process, I'm excited to hear what the groups would like to propose.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Alice.
Mm-hmm.
I think it should be noted that we have our one veteran that's sitting here on the council. So good. Perfect. Any other questions or comments before I open it to the public? All right. I will open it for public participation. I do have James Brad Becker, if you'd like to come on up.
Mr. Mayor and council members, thank you for having us speak here today. I represent the American Legion. Excuse the attire. I just got pinched. I'm a pinch hitter for our commander who had to fly out of town on a family emergency. I'm come from the fairgrounds where we have our main fundraiser out there for the year. But we have been in agreement, I'm going to speak for the American Legion, where we agree with the current drawing and the sidewalk and everything. We would like to see flagpoles. And I did talk to Admiral Seward, who is the commander of the VFW. About 2 hours ago, he's irrigating, sends his regrets, but he's in agreement also. So if you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them, but we're in agreement with everything.
Great. Any questions or comments? We appreciate you staying engaged and working on this issue. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely. Mr. Maharis, Andrew. For the record, a letter was submitted by Mr. Maharis, and I'm referencing that as your request. Perfect.
Thank you, Mayor Soseth and Council. My name is Andrew Maharis. I'm the commander for Disabled American Veterans Chapter 74 at Turlock. And there's a letter I submitted, but I want to read off the letter. This way I don't, piece things together. I'm just going to read some of this letter. The Korean War Memorial Cannon should be placed at Central Park. Now, like the other gentleman was saying that he spoke to the VFW commander, American Legion commander, I also have done that. And they both agree that that's a good place to put it. Should be placed at Central Park with a fence around it to prevent vandalism. Placing placards of disabled American veterans, American Legion, and veterans of foreign war military organizations under the cannon. The purpose of the placards is to bring public awareness of military organizations in the community. When viewing the cannon, veterans as well as the public will become aware of the military organizations in Turlock, and the cannon will also provide a place for the public to celebrate its military heritage. We asked the wording addressing owner, and this is the main concern that most of the groups have, and I'll just read it. The wording addressing the ownership of the cannon reflects the above organizations as co-owners of the Korean War Memorial Cannon to prevent the cannon from being sold in the future, making all right to the cannon to the above-mentioned military organizations. We agree to keep the cannon at Central Park for public viewing. The Korean War Memorial Cannon allows the community of Turlock, a landmark, to celebrate the proud service of the men and women of Turlock who served defending our great country. Now, and again, I want to emphasize as far as the ownership, and mainly just some wording to protect the cannon from being sold in the future, because that means a lot to the veterans in this town. That cannon's been around for a long time, and so we want to keep it in this town and make it a landmark, just to express our love for the military and just the heritage of our military heritage in this town.
Absolutely. No, we appreciate your input, and good seeing you again. Unfortunately, ownership of the cannon as a topic is not on the agenda tonight, but we can direct you to work with staff, and we can bring this up at a later date to try and come up with a good solution.
Okay.
That
Thank
works.
you so much.
Thank you. Absolutely. Thank you for all your hard work. Anybody else from the public like to address the council on this issue? If not, I'll bring it back to the council for further questions or direction. Absolutely. I think it should be Councilmember DeHart. Go for it.
I do have a question, Mayor, with respect to the current ownership.
Yeah. Okay, yes.
Who is the current owner? Do we know?
I'm going to address this to the city attorney.
Well, possession's 9/10 of the law. I think we're the current owners. We have not researched the ownership. However, in discussions with staff, I would be happy to work with the groups to craft a resolution to the greatest extent possible under the law. If we have the ability to give a first right of refusal, I'd be happy to work on any of that language if that's the direction of the council.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I think one of the things that we do need to keep in mind is the fact that it is the communities. It's not any one organization. It's not just the cities. It's not just this group or that group. But I think all of ours, in any way we can memorialize that, I think would be appropriate.
Absolutely. I think that's a good comment. And I think that, depending how this vote goes, I think it reflects our commitment to making sure that this remains a memorial. But again, I'll turn the microphone back to Councilmember DeHart because I think he has something to say.
Oh, thank you, sir.
This isn't orchestrated, I'm just saying.
Now I'm on the spot. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move that we so determine ownership and create a language that we can act upon to ascertain the same.
Can I entertain? I don't.
We'll
We can't do that tonight?
I think that's good direction to staff,
Mhm.
and we'll bring an item back related to the ownership and how we deal with that issue on a go-forward basis.
Okay, so if you won't go for that, how about I introduce the resolution authorizing the relocation of the War Memorial Cannon to Central Park?
Absolutely. Do I have a second? Second. We have a motion by Councilmember DeHart, seconded by Councilmember Bublock. Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, motion carries 5-0. Thank you again for all of your hard work on this issue. All right, moving on to item 8C. As promised during the budget workshops, we are bringing back this item. Request to approve funding of 2 police service dogs and associated costs, not to exceed $104,000 for the first year of operation, with an ongoing annual cost of $28,000 for each additional year of operation, which will be absorbed into the future general fund budgets, and appropriating said first-year funds to expenditure account numbers in Fund 116. Chief Jackson.
Thank you, Mayor, and sorry for all the words on that title.
No.
And thank you for asking us during the budget workshops and the approval for us to bring this back. It's a great opportunity to provide a service to the community that we're not currently doing. Lieutenant Miguel Pacheco put forth a lot of work and effort as far as the information on the program and developing it. So I asked him to be here tonight to present that to you. And at the end, both he and I will be available for any questions if you have any.
Thank you so much, Lieutenant Pacheco. By the way, he did a great job filling in for you when you were gone, so during the budget.
Great pitch to start off.
It is.
Honorable Mayor, City Council, thanks for letting me come back and talk about this issue more in depth. We have, not just myself, but staff has put a lot of hours into this, not coming up with just the numbers relative to the budget and funding of this, but obviously where that money's coming from and the purpose of these dogs. So just for everyone here that wasn't at the workshop, a little history on the item. Back in about 2009, due to budgetary issues and some other issues that were out there, Turlock PD had to defund essentially a canine unit. So it's been since about that time that we have been operating without Turlock police canines. We had a very robust program at one point. You know, that the numbers ebbed and flowed a little bit there, but that was about the time that we said goodbye to the program. Since then, what we've had to do during critical situations where we thought it necessary and prudent to, use a police dog is utilize other agencies in the county. Those response time varied if they were available at all. Other agencies also had their units downsized, if not cut altogether. So during the strategic planning phase of where we wanted to see the department go in the future, this was one of the chief's priorities and the department's line staff as well. So we really got input from the organization as a whole that this was a priority. In talking about the benefits of the police dog, like I said during the workshop, the thing that sticks out the most is the officer safety component. Like I said, since 2009, if someone flees from a field unit and we have an obligation and a duty to the community to try and apprehend that person, there's only so many things we can do without a dog, biggest of being we don't have necessarily a way to track that person. This dog would give our officers the ability to track their focus and clear corners and fence lines in a lot safer capacity. The other thing is we talk about a force multiplier. I think the council used at one point. That's a good term in that, what the police department here wants is compliance. If we have to arrest someone, we don't want to have to get into a physical confrontation. I know there might be some thoughts out there of dogs and use of force, but just the presence we're hoping, and we know from history that's a deterrent from people that want to use violence or thinking of running. What we want is compliance, and this is going to be a way for us to get that. So with that being said, the Turlock PD is asking that the matter before you that you do in fact fund the 2 police dogs in the amount not to exceed $104,000 for the first year, with ongoing maintenance costs not to exceed $28,000 per year after that. So with that, I can entertain any questions you may have.
Any questions or comments for Lieutenant Pacheco? Yes, Councilman Jacob.
I'm looking through the cost breakdown. Is there anything budgeted for a bulletproof vest for the 2 dogs?
No, there's not. We were looking at this budget, and this was a little bit talk about the budget. This was put together by not just myself, but people with history with dogs, and this was getting up there price-wise, so we wanted to make it reasonable. But there are ways to go after grants. There's ways to go through community fundraising events that we can pursue that in those 2 capacities to get vests for the dogs.
Do you have an estimate on how much that might cost to buy 2 of those vests?
I do not.
But a vote tonight doesn't preclude us from exploring that option, perhaps funding it through another way, like you said, a community organization or something.
Right. I know when we had the unit, they had fundraisers, essentially fairs, police fairs, and they were very successful. We think that would continue, but obviously when you're putting the budget together, we don't want to count as that as money in the bank. But that is a direction that we can go, and they were successful in the past.
Okay, great. Any other questions or comments, or does that satisfy the question? If not, I'm going to open it to the public for public comment. Anyone have questions or comments from the public? If not, I'm going to bring it back to the council. What is the pleasure of the council? Yes, Councilmember Bublock.
Just food for thought real quick. I don't know if you've ever noticed, but the Big Ben, the quarterback for Pittsburgh Steelers, not my team, but he really supports K9 and usually gives a lot of money out for requests. So it might be worth asking. I know there are other quarterbacks out there as well that might be from Turlock.
What
I
are
don't
you
know.
talking about?
Just throw that out there. Anyway, I'd love to introduce that resolution.
So we have a motion and we have okay, that was quick. So we have a motion by Councilmember Bublak, seconded by Councilmember DeHart. Any other questions or comments? Sorry, that went quickly. Councilmember Nascimento, do you have a question or comment? All right.
I have a follow-up
Yes,
question. Are we going to have a show and tell day where you're going to come and demonstrate the tricks and things?
That is required, I think.
Are you volunteering to be in the bite suit? Definitely. We'll definitely share the animals with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you bet.
Phaedra. We have some people we'd like to put in that bite suit. Yeah. Might be Phaedra. All right. So we have a motion and a second. A motion by Councilmember Bublak, second by Councilmember DeHart. Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, motion carries 5-0, and that might have been the fastest motion and second I've ever heard. But thank you so much, Lieutenant Pacheco and Chief, for putting this together. We really appreciate the hard work that you put into it. Sorry that we couldn't get this wrapped up into the budget, but I think accuracy is better, and I think that these numbers will reflect that we have a well thought out plan and going forward, and we're going to make these dogs very central to the community, and I think there's going to be a lot of buy-in, and so it's a very good thing. Happy to pass this tonight. Moving on to item 8D, a request to authorize an exception to the 180-day wait period pursuant to California Government Code Section 7522.56 and 21224, and the interim appointment of retired city employee Betty Gonzalez to assist with the City of Turlock purchasing function. Director Kelly Jacobs-Hunter.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. The item before you is, just as the mayor described, we're requesting authorization to the exemption to the 180-day wait rule for retirees. Betty Gonzalez worked as our purchasing coordinator for 27 years at the City of Turlock, and as such, she has a wealth of knowledge and knows the job better than anyone, and she's graciously agreed to come back and work on a part-time basis temporarily. We have interviews this Thursday for the purchasing coordinator position, and so she's going to assist us in the selection, and once the new purchasing coordinator is on board, Betty's agreed to train them and work with them to make sure that the purchasing function is covered, which is a very important function of the city. So if you have any questions, PERS requires us to adopt this resolution, basically stating that it is necessary and that we have a need.
Got it.
So if you have any questions, let me know.
Questions or comments for Director Jacobs-Hunter? If not, I'll open up for public. Any questions or comments for Director Jacobs-Hunter? If not, I'll close public participation and bring back to council. What is the pleasure of the council?
So moved.
So we have a motion by Councilmember DeHart, seconded by Councilmember Nascimento to approve the resolution. Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Reflects absent. Yes, motion carries 4-0 with 1 absent. Moving on to item E, request to authorize approval to enter into a contract with Hiscox Insurance Company to maintain insurance coverage for employment practices liability insurance for fiscal year 2015 to 16 for an annual premium of $59,991. Director Jacobs-Hunter.
Thank you. Actually, then the next 4 items are renewals. If that's okay, is that okay if we talk about them as a group or?
City Attorney?
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
So as the mayor read, the first one is renewal of the coverage for employment practices liability insurance. The second is approval to enter into a contract with Safety National Casualty to maintain our excess workers' compensation coverage. And the amount remains the same on that one. The next one is for Symetra Life Insurance for excess loss related to medical and prescription coverage. And the fourth one is approval to enter into a contract with Travelers Property Casualty Insurance to maintain our property program. We have representatives here from Winton, Ireland, Storm and Green. If you guys would like them to go into deeper detail. The one that we had a change on is the excess for the medical and dental. We've increased our stop loss amount per employee so that we could maintain a premium that was included in our budget. And so we've increased, we're requesting to increase that stop loss to $175,000 from $150,000, and that will maintain our premium within the levels in the budget. Other than that, these are all renewals. They're all with the same companies, and the premium amounts are pretty much similar, except for the one I mentioned on the excess medical. So if you'd like, they can cover it more if you're...
Do you have anything else to add, Mr. Ireland? Yes, City Manager.
I just want to call out that on the change in the stop loss, it also includes a change in the premium from $1.6 million to $2.2 million. And this is directly related, and we can get into greater detail if council would like, to an unusual pattern of use that is way out of the norm and continues to accelerate increase the cost of our coverage for health care for our employees. So we see this leveraging up that's been consistent over the last 6 years. I might get the number wrong, see if we can remember. 6 years ago, our stop loss was $90,000, I believe, and the premium was in the neighborhood of $600,000, $700,000. You're now seeing a stop loss of $175,000 with a $2.2 million premium, and it's driven by experience that's outside of the norm in the healthcare world. Sorry to be a downer.
No, absolutely not. But I think that bringing this up, I mean, we don't have to get into too much detail, but a little bit more detail would be appropriate at this time if we can get into some of those numbers as to why a little bit more. I mean, if that's appropriate. Or I'm the mayor. I think I can say what's appropriate up here. So, yes, let's get into this.
That's fine. Thank you, Mayor and Council. My name is Lynn, and I'm with Winton Ireland Insurance here in Turlock. And as Roy stated, we have seen increases over the years. I went back actually from 1998 to current. You've been with Symetra on your stop loss. And over the years, through that same time period from 1998 current, you've actually paid in premium that exceeds about $11.9 million. Symetra has paid out $13.7 million in claims. So your loss ratio is about 148% since 1998. You've actually had very good longevity with Symetra, and they're a great carrier. Their contract is very strong. But as Ray mentioned, we have particularly about 6 claimants that have very high loss experience over the last few years, and that influences what we can get in the general marketplace. And unfortunately, the timing is such that at renewal time, it's not a great time for a lot of that to happen. So we don't have, when we look at alternatives, there's not a huge amount of alternatives that are out there, particularly when you have a loss ratio that's almost 150%. So for every dollar you're spending on insurance, the insurance company's paying out almost $1.50 in claims. So that's what we're dealing with. They are a little bit higher than norm. When we look at norm data, compare the city of Turlock to other municipalities, not just in this area, but in the western states, which would include Washington, Oregon, Nevada, Arizona. Also, the size of the group, your claims are higher than the average. So that's what we're dealing with when we're shopping your reinsurance for you. Does that give you enough detail?
A little bit, yeah. Mr. Ireland, you want to add to this?
Yeah, Michael Ireland. Excuse me, Lynn. I didn't mean to push you over. Additionally, you have medical inflation that's averaging at least 10% a year. So if the insurance company is taking in $100 of premium now to pay whatever claims they need to, that same $100 a year later only pays for 90%, and so on and so forth. So there's it's in the newspaper every day, and we see it everywhere. Medical inflation is just horrible. So the combination of your high claims utilization with this group and medical inflation is kind of what puts us in this situation presently.
City Manager, yeah.
And Mayor, I'd be remiss if I didn't compliment Winton Ireland for the great work they do to help us the costs, with finding the coverage. And there's a lot of perception about what can happen, and then there's reality. And quite honestly, Winton Ireland has just been a great partner with us in this and is critical to our being able to move forward. And so I deeply appreciate their dedication and effort. And as we look at the increasing cost of medical coverage, I think it's a credit to the efforts, including especially those by Winton Ireland, in shopping our rates and helping us, that we've, for the first time in 3 years, taken a 7%, Kelly, 7% increase in our medical costs. And we base our increases on actual experience. So when the rest of the world has experienced 10, 20% a year in increases, over that same period, we've done a 7% increase, which reflects what we believe will actually be spent on health care.
Yeah, and just to clarify that a little bit more, the last 2 years have virtually been flat, and we're seeing this anomaly this year, partly due to some of these large losses that we have right now.
So for the thousands of people watching us on TV right now, they're going to look at us and say, what do we do as a city? Is there something we should be doing differently? I mean, as far as these numbers, and we've identified this issue, but what's your perspective?
Starts at the top, Mr. Mayor.
As do a lot of issues, Mr. Ireland. Yes.
No. There's
right.
This area, the Central Valley, tends to be more expensive for medical attention than the Bay Area. We're increasingly getting more creative with medical tourism, and sometimes it makes more sense to send somebody and a family member to distances afar to get a particular medical procedure done, because it just turns out better for them and better for everybody. It's just better results when you go to those centers of excellence in medicine. So that's it's not even emerging; it's here, where we manage that. You have a phenomenal third-party administrator. You have a really good contract with Symetra. We study them carefully. Symetra is generally known as the strongest in the industry. They don't laser out problems. If you have an employee or a dependent that needs medical attention now, they're not going to come back at the renewal and put a cap on the amount of insurance that they'll pay for that person. It is comprehensive and it's complicated. It is frustrating because it is very expensive, and we all feel it. Whether it's partially self-funded plans like this or guaranteed cost, it's a drag. I'm sure the Obamacare will help us eventually. We'll be optimistic on that. Who knows? I will tell you though too that Lynn gets to deliver the bad news on the health plan. It's not terrible news, but the other lines that we're talking about here, the employment practices liability, that came in at a 2% price reduction despite an increase in the number of employees. The workers' comp is a flat rate. The premium's up a little bit because our exposure's up a little bit, the amount of payroll. And on the property and the liability, it's up a little bit also, but the rates are flat there also. So if you're paying a little bit more premium, it's because we have an increase in exposure. So it's a pretty good renewal. We're except for the health and benefits, but that's our conversation with everybody every day. It's just rough.
Absolutely. Thank you. City Manager, do you want to add?
And I appreciate Mike's comments. The importance of our taking our personal health is really important in our workforce. And you, as council, have made the investment in the budget to do the CITY program, which seeks after the health of our employees and making good choices in how we care for ourselves. And there is a portion of this that we need to really push into the culture. I'm told that at 52%, you'll remember the CITY report, I think 2 meetings ago, and they reported that we had 52% participation. I would like it to be 100% participation. We'll strive for that. we need every employee and their dependents making those healthy choices to help change this. The unhealthy choices actually result in long-term very costly care. We can look at the high-cost things that are occurring and see a large percentage, maybe as much as 70%, are related to lifestyle choices, which goes back to we need to continue to invest in the healthy care, good choice, CITY type efforts. And so that will continue along with all the efforts to contain costs.
And Mayor, just to piggyback on top of that, to answer your question, in my opinion, self-funding or partially self-funding is the best way to manage risk. You have control of your plan. You're doing the CITY program for your health of your employees, and you have direct impact to your own medical claims because of that. So that's a definite positive situation. So we're trying to manage the things that we can manage, and that's some of the things that we can manage. The things that we can't manage are things that why you have insurance. That's why we have what we have, so we don't go bankrupt, to make sure that we have that hospital stay covered or that type of thing. So trying to work within the parameters of what we have, trying to look at the benefits on how we could change those and modify those to benefit both the employees and the city of Turlock.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the council? If not, I'm going to ask for a point of clarification from the city attorney. Am I asking for public participation on items E through H, or do we need to individually open public participation?
No, you can take them all at the same time.
All right, perfect. So I'm going to open public participation for items E through H. Any questions or comments from the public? All right, I'll bring it back to the council. And again, another point of clarification. Would you like us to take them separately or together? All right, if that's the will of the council. So I will bring it back to the council for further communication, discussion, or possible action. They're staring down over here.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to go ahead and advance the resolutions as found in Agenda Item 8, Echo, Foxtrot, Golf, and Hotel, relative to employment practices liability insurance, workers' comp insurance, excess loss insurance, and the traveler's property casualty as outlined in those items.
Perfect. Do I have a second? All right. So a motion by Councilmember DeHart, seconded by Councilmember Jacob for items E through H. Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, motion carries 5-0. Thank you so much for coming, Mike and Lynn. All right, moving on, and thank you so much, Kelly. Moving on to item I, A, request to authorize the issuance of Community Facilities District Number 1, Monte Vista Corridor, Special Tax Refunding Bond Series 2015, and the execution and delivery of certain related documents and taking certain related actions. Marie, how are you?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The item before you at this time is the request to essentially refinance, we call it refunding, the 1999 CFD number 1 bonds that are outstanding. As you would guess by the year, the city issued these bonds in 1999 to provide some funding or financial assistance to the infrastructure construction at Monte Vista Crossings, which was just getting off the ground at that point in time. It was the proceeds of the bonds plus developer money that put the backbone infrastructure in there, the interchange improvements and countryside, partially, I'm not sure if it was all the way down or partially. I wasn't, unfortunately, in town at the time. But it did that backbone that got that shopping center off the ground. At the same time the bonds were issued, the City Council implemented or formed CFD number 1, Community Facilities District number 1, and established a process to levy an assessment on the parcel owners within CFD number 1 to provide a funding source to retire those bonds. The parcel owners are assessed each year their proportionate share of the monies needed to make the annual debt service payment along with administrative costs for the CFD. At this time, there's approximately $2.8 million outstanding in that bond out of the 4.6 that was originally issued. The bonds currently would be fully retired on their current pace in September of 2024. And the outstanding bonds right now, the portion that's outstanding carries 6.7 and 7% coupons. So that gives you a flavor for what the market was at that point in time. The proposed refunding before council would lock in a 2.52 interest rate for the remaining term, again to September 2024. And with the cash on hand and the monies in the debt service account for the existing bonds, the staff is proposing to issue just over $2 million at that 2.5% rate to retire the $2.8 million that's outstanding. Again, these bonds will mature at the same time the existing ones do in September 2024. The annual debt service on the new bonds is about $250,000 a year compared to over $400,000 on the existing bonds. It's about a 35% annual savings for those parcel owners within CFD number 1. The present value of the savings is approximately $400,000. It's gotten a little bit better since I wrote the staff report. We have all of the costs in now for the issuance costs, so that brought the savings up a little bit, and the all-in interest rate down to about 3.68%. Due to the size of the bond issuance, it's in the bond community, it's fairly small, and the maturity is fairly short. Staff is proposing a private placement offering, which means that we, through our financial consultants, had financial institutions who were interested in buying the bonds as a lump sum versus individual amounts that is in a normal bond issuance. We put that bid out there. We had banks and financial institutions respond. Based on their responses, we are currently recommending proceeding with City National. They were the low bidder. City National has done their due diligence and their credit review, and we found out yesterday they've approved our credit application. So should council decide to move forward, City National is also ready to move forward. The anticipated closing date, should council decide to move forward, is next week. This date gives us time as staff to get the new debt service numbers into the formula necessary to assess the parcel owners, so they would reap the benefit of this 35% reduction in debt service for their 15-16 tax bill. If there's any questions, I would be happy to answer them.
Questions or comments from Marie? Council. Although, let the record reflect that beautiful was muttered by Councilmember DeHart earlier just now, so that's good, Marie. I don't know where that was directed, but we'll just let it go towards the facts. Yeah, Councilman Nascimento.
Marie, I just want to thank. I know through the strategic plan update, something that was mentioned a few times was the need to sort of take a comprehensive look at the city's outstanding bonds and debts and liabilities, and look for opportunities to reduce those or refinance them. And it's just great to see you guys taking that initiative and looking for ways to save us some dollars. So appreciate that.
You're welcome. After this one, we've got one other debt issue that was done in '99 that would be outstanding once we do this one, which relates to the redevelopment agency bonds. We will be looking at that. Unfortunately, due to staff requirements and other areas, it probably won't be until next spring before we have a chance to look at that one. The redevelopment or successor agency has a 2006 and 2011 issue. Those were both done when the interest rates were significantly lower. My last conversation with our financial consultants indicate that those don't have enough savings in them to make refinancing worth it. But the 99 we can look at. The complication with the successor agency is you need to go through the State of California Department of Finance to get their approval on it. My understanding from just hearing people who are going through the process, they're getting much better at it, but it's by no means a smooth sailing like it may have been in the past when we didn't have that additional factor. So we will be looking at that, and then after that one, all of our older bonds will have either been refinanced or retired, so that the ones currently outstanding have been issued during this historically low time period, which means that the likelihood of getting a better deal down the road isn't there. We locked in when it's been low. So.
Any questions or comments for the public from Marie? Not, I'll bring it back to the council. What would for further discussion, or what's the pleasure of the council?
I will introduce the resolution authorizing the issuance of Community Facilities District 1 special tax refunding bonds.
Second.
So we have a motion by Councilmember Nascimento, seconded by Councilmember DeHart. Quick, please call the roll.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, motion carries 5-0. Moving on to the next item, request to adopt tax-advantaged bonds post-issuance compliance procedures. Marie.
Thank you. This item is more of a housekeeping item. Over the course of the last few years, the IRS has taken or placed a new focus on the importance of all bond issuers, including municipal bond issuers, of essentially having procedures in place to make sure that they comply with not only the tax covenants when they issue the bonds, but the IRS covenants that ensure that those bonds that are issued on a tax-exempt basis maintain their tax-exempt status. City staff currently does the procedures that are in the document before you. What the IRS is looking for is something in writing that essentially memorializes that. There's a new form when we do a bond issuance that asks if we have this in place, and in order to say yes, we need to pass the resolution. So our bond counsel has asked that we have this approved now before we finalize the item that you just considered. So with that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions or comments? All right, seeing none from the council, to the public. Open public participation. Any questions or comments from Marie on this issue? Not, I'll bring it back to the council. What is the pleasure of the council?
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Jacobs, seconded by Councilmember Nascimento. Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, motion carries 5-0.
Great, thank you.
Thank you so much, Marie. Moving on to council items for future consideration. Looking to my left and right, seeing none, moving on to council comments. Do we have any council comments for tonight? To the left, to the right? All right, well then I have two. First, I want to say that the 4th of July celebration at the college, or at the university, California State University Stanislaus was a really good move, literally moved from the fairgrounds to the university. Specifically, I want to thank the recreation department. Your staff were great. Overwhelmed by children in the kids' fun zone, but I think that that's going to be work out all those kinks. But I think it was great because I think there was no one complaining while they were staying in line. They were all excited to get in the jump house and the obstacle course. I challenged one kid, but it would require me to cut in line, so I didn't want to do that just yet. I'm still a new mayor, so I decided not to. But again, the fireworks were great. The partnership with everyone involved was fantastic, but a special thank you to the Recreation Department, Parks and Recreation Department. The second thing, as I've said, whenever we go to a conference or whenever we leave town on official business in our role as council members or as mayor, I think it's always good that we come back to the council and just briefly in this section talk about what we've done and what we're bringing back to the council so that the community sees the value of us leaving town and getting our training. So one of the things I did, I was invited by Mayor Tate. Mayor Tate is the mayor of Anaheim, California, and he initiated a great program or project really in his city. It's a million acts of kindness, and it was to transform his city into a city of kindness. And he did this in partnership with the Dalai Lama, the 14th reincarnation of Buddha himself. Worked on this initiative with him, and it transformed the community. He really targeted K through 6th grade, and it wasn't just opening a door for someone. It was if you have a classmate that's suffering from cancer, you saw a group of girls come together and grow their hair out to donate it to Locks of Love. And so that's just one act of kindness. And there were millions of these, literally a million acts of kindness over a certain period. And so he's trying to start a movement. And so I was invited down with some other mayors from Southern California. I was the lone Central California mayor down to Anaheim to listen and meet with the Dalai Lama about making the world a kinder place and starting it at our city level. And so I'm wearing a wristband along with Made in the CSU, but the wristband is Anaheim City of Kindness, and I hope to change that to Turlock City of Kindness here in the fall. And that's one of the initiatives that I'll be pushing forward with the Mayor's Youth Conference that we will be kicking off in September-October timeframe. So again, I just think it's appropriate that whenever we leave and whenever we have these opportunities to get trained up or to visit other cities, that we come back and we share with the community what we've learned. All right, so moving on to closed session items. City Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. We're going to adjourn to consider 11A, conference with legal counsel pending litigation, California Government Code 54956.94, one case.
Thank you so much. Moving on to adjournment. Do I have a motion? So moved. Second. We have a motion by Councilmember Nascimento, second by Councilmember Bublak. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. We are adjourned.